Any layperson will see value in undertaking scientific research where the goal is to develop new technologies and processes that will lead to an improvement in the betterment for families, for people generally, and for society. They may find it a bit more difficult, however, to understand the opposite of this, which is to undertake research to satisfy an individual scientist's curiosity in order to generate scientific knowledge that will just add to the world's general pool of knowledge. The concept of research, of either having no goal or purpose other than satisfying scientific curiosity, is one of the key differentiating factors between scholarly research, traditionally undertaken by university academics, and that of the type of research that I refer to as practitioner, trade, or custom research. This difference in the perceived predominant value in research having no purpose other than satisfying curiosity is long established and reflected in the terms that are often used when we talk about research as being pure or fundamental research. This really all has possible implications for how we perceive the role of scientists generally, the perceived level of trust that is placed in them, as well as each scientist's value contribution to society. Scientists of all kinds requires a level of autonomy, independence, and objectivity, an ability to be prescriptive and descriptive in a rational way, the facts and evidence rather than the personal preferences determining the outcome of the research. It may seem easier to believe and trust that scientists behave in a more objective, non-judgmental way when their only purpose is to expand the range of human knowledge, whatever the outcome. Rather than when goals are introduced as a purpose and reason for undertaking science, since this then brings with it, according to some holier-than-thou purists, an implied bias, possibility of diminishing objectivity in what might be perceived as the desire by a scientist to generate a particular outcome. This ideal of greater objectivity and independence of goal-less knowledge might historically partly explain the apparent elevated status assumed by those scientists who in the past undertook scholarly research as opposed to practitioner, trade, or custom type of research. The engineers, the applied scientists, the muddy boots brigade. Each of these more practical types of research are by their nature research undertaken to deliver to a particular goal. Hence, from this reckoning, reason would dictate that because practitioner, trade, or custom research is goal-oriented, then there will be an element of bias in the judgment of scientists that potentially make their scientific outputs then less trustworthy. This supposedly means that any research that is aimed at delivering something of value to an end user, that is, it is directed towards delivering a benefit to society, it has a goal, is less reliable, cannot be trusted, because it is likely to be biased. This, of course, would imply that all scientific research undertaken within a company to develop new technologies, products and services such as medicines and new medical devices cannot be trusted, even though, of course, the majority of research carried out in the development of such products is carried out by commercial companies. Universities and some research institutes have traditionally been considered to be above suspicion. But with the increasing emphasis now being placed on the need to deliver impact, goal-orientated research has become normalized, even for universities. Some argue that on this basis, university researchers have been deprived of their academic freedom by needing to conform to a research strategy or outcomes of targeted funding, specifying exactly what the researcher is expected to study and how, and leaving very little scope for independence. The difference between the assumed trust of academics and supposed lack of trust associated with goal-orientated researcher is simply just based on a false premise. That false premise is that the academic career advancement does not in any way influence the behaviour, objectivity and independence of the individual scientist, and the rather lax peer review system will pick up any errors or malfeasance, etc., on its own. It's all sufficient to maintain quality and standards of work. The contrast to this, to the professionalism of many research-orientated businesses, with management processes in place, scientific peer review, but including peer assessments from disciplines as varied as finance, commercial, legal, marketing, sales, all looking to ensure that the science meets the specifications and rigour of regulators and customers, provides a complex but intensive means of assessment of standards of proof of the validity of a research output. Combined, these are levels of scrutiny that are much greater than those that are ever applied to academic research. So the opposite of what might be seen as trustworthiness of science from academics represents a poor comparison with the validation processes that are most often achieved by science in science-orientated businesses. A move towards a more impactful and goal-orientated end-user output from academic university research should lead to a more enhanced system of review and validation of science in university and research institutes, equivalent to the higher standards of private sector commercial research. It is time to stop peddling the view that academic curiosity-driven research is more trustworthy than that of goal-orientated scientific research.